Hello and welcome to Crack NCA Exams. In today's video, we'll be discussing how to attempt the administrative law exam. The administrative law exam usually has one question, which is a 100 marker. That's at least been the pattern since few years, but NCA is unpredictable. They can surprise you with different questions as well. But overall, the purpose of this exam is to see whatever the question is, to see if it was procedurally fair, and also review the decision maybe, depending on the question, obviously. All right. So, what is the purpose of administrative law? We know if you've studied admin law or if you're not, then purpose of administrative law is to keep the check on government's power. Now, if you've taken my IRACs already, in the IRACs you would see there's a huge number of checks that are listed, both in procedural fairness and in substantive fairness as well. We'll come to substantive fairness in a bit, but let's talk about procedural fairness first. Procedural fairness, where the question comes in, we need to quickly check, who's the decision maker, does the applicant have a standing? The court should apply for, which court has the power to apply for judicial review. All those initial things you got to do. Okay, it's listed in the IRACs. You start from there, and once once there's affirmative answer in the preliminary questions, that 5 preliminary questions, that is when you move on to the ground of review, the procedural fairness bit. In procedural fairness bit, you start with answering various things, and I don't know if you already figured it out by yourself. If you have, awesome. If you have not, in my IRACs, I list out how to cover various things that you have to cover in the answer. When we study all those concepts, but bringing those concepts to the exam takes a little bit of preparation. Now, like I said, in my IRACs, I have listed them down clearly. If you haven't done that and you're very close to the exam, please do yourself a favor, go to the website, get the IRACs only. That way, you will at least have a structure that you need to follow in the exam. When the procedural fairness starts, the first thing is to mention sources. What are the sources of the procedural fair? Is it coming from a statute? Is it coming from a subordinate legislation, guidelines, common law, charter? What's the source of the decision or the legislation which is in the question? Then we do an analysis of it. First, you mention the rule, then we do the analysis of it. Then we move on to the degree of procedural fairness, high, low, medium. Then you mention, the 3-prong test, the 5 steps, the nature of decision, the nature of statutory scheme, and so on and so forth. And once you list the 5 steps, you then move on to doing the analysis of it. Once you know, okay, then you have to clarify, high level of procedural fairness was required, medium or low, depending on the facts, when you do the analysis. While doing the analysis, you will also realize that, okay, as per my understanding, most likely a high degree or higher, a high to mid. Try to limit yourself between high, mid, and low. I'm not saying like put degrees of between high and low. I mean, like either say high, either say medium, either say low. These are the 3 kind of degrees of procedural fairness that may be required in certain situations, and that's how you mention that. Once you've done that bit, then you move on to other stuff, which is the content of procedural fairness. In the content of procedural fairness, you analyze impacts, rights, promises that were made, and if they were being met or not. You talk about participatory rights, you talk about independent and impartial hearing or bias. This is technically the analysis also. And then once you've done this is when you will be able to conclude your answer. This is normally the procedural fairness steps. Now, I have done a very general overview, but again, in my IRACs, you can see it's a very detailed analysis. It goes from one step to the other, to the other, to the other. You cover everything that you've studied, legitimate exceptions, expectations, sorry. You talk about choices of procedure. You talk about everything, the importance of decision to the individual or individuals affected. So these are the things that fall in place once you look at a structure of the answer. And that is very important for the exam because, again, everyone knows this, 3-hour exam is not enough. 3 hours is very short time for this kind of a paper, especially when you don't have a fast typing speed. All right. This is the first kind of question that you can expect. I've done a very general, overview of it. the moment you look into the IRACs, you will exactly understand the flow that you got to follow for procedural fairness. Now moving on to the second part. The second part of the question would be standard of review, or we call it substantive review. In this, we are actually now moving on to check, the review the decision basically. And I don't know, I was really surprised the other day, and that's why I immediately decided to do this video today. Somebody reached out to me and asked me about the standard of review and started talking about Dunsmuir a lot. Now, I don't know who all know about Dunsmuir now, because Dunsmuir is the old case which was overruled by Vavilov. Some people are exchanging notes. Some people are sharing old notes. Some people are studying from old notes. This is a big problem because you may not have the most updated notes, etc., and you end up putting wrong answers in the exam. So please don't do that. Study from the most latest notes and never share notes. Okay. Crack down on that on the Crack NCA exam group already once. Anyways, I won't talk about it much, but yeah, standard of review is now based on the rules and guidelines set by the Vavilov decision. Now, as per the Vavilov decision, there are the standard of review is reasonableness, and it can be only rebutted in two circumstances: legislative intent and as per the rule of law. Now, this is the basic thought. This is how we approach the question. And then when we mention this, then we get into performing the reasonable review as per Vavilov itself. And again, decision can be unreasonable in certain circumstances. You've all studied about it. I'm not getting into entire detail of IRACs, but this is also the simple approach towards standard of review. Now, it may seem like, oh my God, substantive review is such a difficult thing. But if you really have the structure in hand, or in your mind at least, or if you've prepared it, that this is the way I'm going to answer the thing, it becomes a checklist kind of a thing. Okay, the first step is to do this. Check, yes, no. Second step is to do this. Check, yes, no. And then once you've done with the whole checklist of steps that you need to follow to answer the paper, in the end, you yourself will be more clear about, okay, this is the conclusion, or no, given the revised framework, the decision of so-and-so body can be deemed reasonable, unreasonable. Those kinds of conclusion will naturally fall in front of you once you do the analysis of the entire thing. So the most important thing in this exam is to know what you have to do from first step to the last of the entire answer. IRACs having a structure will help you, and it will bring together the entire, the answer for you, and you don't have to then think about, okay, how will I perform a review, analysis, etc. So it's just like how things happen in court. Things are presented one by one, everything is considered one by one, and by the end you have everything together and you conclude it. So that's the kind of approach you will also take for this exam. With that, I think I've covered how to write the IRACs and how to write the answers. You should wish that you get one question of 100 mark, because that makes the life absolutely easy, because then you start from procedural fairness, finish the entire procedural fairness part of the answer, and then you move on to the review. Same facts, you've already established, if procedural fairness was required or not, and then you move on to the decision and see if the decision itself is right or wrong, reasonable or unreasonable. So these are the two things that work together in that 100 marker question. And yep, that's about from me. If you guys have any thoughts, any inputs, we have access to each other. You can leave comments on this video, or you could start a conversation on the WhatsApp. The links are in the description. I will put all of them, all the relevant links. And yeah, let's stay in touch. All the best for your exams. Ciao.